Hello friends and my dear students, welcome to the another episode of video lecture. Today I shall be discussing about is there an Indian way of thinking by A.K. Ramanujan. A.K. Ramanujan is an Indian poet. Indian literature, English literature written in English. Okay, there are two broad categories. One is Indo-Anglican or Indo-Anglian literature, Indians that write in English, and Anglo-Indians, those who were British born or either of their parents was British, especially the father. When they used to write in Indian soil, Indian culture, Indian ethos, related to Indian literary sentiment and all these things, so that was called Anglo-Indian literature. Okay. Without wasting time, let us go for the topic, because otherwise the video becomes longer. Okay. So hello, I am Professor Dr. Kamal Bhattacharya from Motherhood University, Roorkee, Uttarakhand, Haridwar, Uttarakhand. A.K. Ramanujan was born in Mysore in India. Okay, he earned his degree at the University of Mysore and Deccan College in Pune, and a PhD from Indiana University. Ramanujan wrote in both English and Kannada, and his poetry is known for the thematic and formal engagement. Thematic means related to theme. Thematic and formal engagement with modernist translation or transliterism, okay, or transnationalism. Transnationalism. Transnationalism means which is across the nation and beyond. Okay. Issues such as hybridity, transculturation, transculture between two cultures, that prominently came in his collections of his writings, like Second Sight came in 1986, Selected Poems came in 1976, The Striders came in 1966, The Collected Poems came in 1995, and he also received the Sahitya Akademi Award posthumously. Okay, posthumously means after death. As a scholar, Ramanujan contributed to a range of disciplines, including linguistics and cultural studies. His informal essay, okay, Is There an Indian Way of Thinking, proposed a notion of context sensitive. It is a context sensitive thinking based in complex situational understandings of identity that differed significantly from Western thought, and its emphasis on universal concepts and structures. So when a personality tries to figure out his existence and how he thinks, and when this thought goes beyond the national boundary, so that is the essence, the magnet of his writing. Context sensitive thinking influenced Ramanujan as a folklorist. Okay, his works of scholarship include A Flowering Tree and the Other Tales from India, 1997, Folk Tales from India, a selection of oral tales and 22 languages in 1991, The Interior Landscape, Love Poems from a Classical Tamil Anthology in 1967. These poems, these writings markedly embedded in as a folklorist. It has a sense of folk culture theme related to Indian folk culture, folk songs, folk stories from antiquity. For much of his career, Ramanujan taught at the University of Chicago, okay, where he helped develop the South Asian Studies program. In 1976, the Indian government honored him with the title Padma Shri, okay, the Padma Shri, the fourth highest civilian award of the country. Okay, so this is what about a brief description of Ramanujan, and now we will try to explore the meaning, the context of his informal essay. Okay, is there an Indian way of thinking? An informal essay. So let us start. A review of and a response to A.K.Ramanujan'S Is There an Indian Way of Thinking? What we like to talk about, and how we think are all factors of where we come from and what social position we occupy. So the question comes from the inherent place where you are coming from. Okay, so there is no us outside of the social formations we inhabit. Ramanujan addresses this in his essay. There is no us. Okay, he talks about the context sensitive and context free culture. So if you read the British literature, if you read the American literature, if you read the African literature, Afro-American literature, you will have a different context, and these contexts are coming up due to several reasons, like historical reasons, economic reasons, political reasons, and cultural reasons. Okay, so he talks about the context sensitive and context free cultures. Indian thinking, which is the product of former. Okay, former means the context sensitive, is influenced by moral and ethics that are context dependent. We Indians, when we write something, generally we used to avoid words, sentences that are not sensitive in the sense of religious sentiment, sexual sentiment. Okay, so influenced by morals, ethics are context dependent, whereas Western way of thinking is informed or written or expressed by morals and ethics that are more absolute in nature and unaffected by context. The morality, the ethics, the values of the Western writers is not very abstract. It is concrete. Okay, it is concrete, and sometimes it is palatable. It is palatable. He starts by asking the question: Is there an Indian way of thinking? In 4 different ways, emphasizing a different word each time, as well as giving 2 answers to every question. Ambiguity is type of sentences. The first question places the emphasis on is and questions the very existence of such a thing as an Indian way of thinking. The answer, number A, there was such a thing but not anymore, and B, India never changes, so the Indian way of thinking still exists. India from the antiquity, from the old time, is a land which is very distinct. The fellow feeling from north to south and east to west were always there. So when we are writing something, a man who writes in east is easily palatable and palpable for the man who is in west. A man who is writing in the north, the writing, the philosophical aspects, the notional aspects is easily conceived, understood by the south. If you have to understand this particular essay, you have to know bit about the historical perspective of Indian continent, Indian subcontinent, and the Western and the American. Okay. So the emphasis in the second question is on an, and so he asks, if there is one unique way of Indian thinking or many such things, the answer in this case, number 1, each community in this country, there are many divided by language, caste, class, creed, has a unique world view and therefore a distinct way of thinking. And answer B, there exists unity in diversity. Here, and so all Indian thought is the same, that I told you. The third question shifts the focus to the word Indian, and Ramanujan says that A, there is nothing inherently Indian about this way of thinking, and that it's also found in other societies that have reached a similar state of development. And B, the Indian way influences everything that enters the country and makes its own. So the Mughal came, the Mongol came, they all commingled with us, and India as a country, as a complete soul, Atma, is never changed. We are still Indians. We were Indians 5,000 years ago. Now the anthropological survey says we are more than 8,000 or 9,000 years ago. Our Indian culture dates back to maybe the oldest one. Okay, so we have never changed because we have always unity in diversity, and then the Indian way influences everything that enters. The fourth question puts the emphasis on thinking, and Ramanujan does not offer any argument over here. Ramanujan then talks about his father, a man of both mathematics and astrology, and uses his examples to explore the utter lack of cognitive dissonance that should have otherwise risen from pursuing two mutually antagonistic activities, that is astrology and mathematics. He goes on talking about modernization and says that even though it may seem like modernization attempts to do away with context, borrowings from other culture get converted before being assimilated into the host culture. Each culture comes with its now own inherent bias. So what is that? In simple language, the modernization of everything. When I am talking about modernization, it is not the modernization alone in the sphere of literature. Literature becomes modern when science becomes modern, society becomes modern, and people becomes educated, and this change or these changes give a new look, new strength of thinking to the modern writer. Therefore, if we go back to the 90s, when Soviet Russia was multifurcated by the philosophy, glasnost and perestroika, it was the Western wind that blew away and multifurcated the very strong, very big Russia. But still, Indian's spirit, Indian soul is never affected. Now, if you visit now Russia, okay, you will have a different context, different opinion, different feeling, different fellow feeling about among the people of Russia, Ukraine, Turkmenistan, Azerbaijan. Okay, they don't feel alike now. But Indians, still we are now divided. Our one part on the east has gone as Bangladesh, and one part has gone as Pakistan. But still, we Indians, when we write something as an Asian or as a writer from this subcontinent, you will be very surprised to see that Indian writers, Pakistani writers and Bangladeshi writers, they have a common feeling, common aura as a writer. They may go to England, they may go to America. So if you look at the Indian writers, those who are living in America, okay, Indian diaspora, if you look at the writing of Arundhati Roy, Jhumpa Lahiri, okay, you will never get any Americanism in their writing. No Americanism. They are still Indians in their thoughts. So this is how he dissected this very basic question, is there any way, an Indian way, is there an Indian way of thinking? Because thinking is a cognitive thing, so he had never, he had not ventured to answer this, because it is something that develops with the culture, education, all these things. But still, when Indians think alike. Okay, so I hope I have explained it for the students. This is also a request video of my two students, Paras Saini and Priyanka, and others, those who are studying in MA, having the same syllabus, might be benefited of this video lecture. So, thank you and God bless you.